no public forum, so apologies for absence. I think the clerks got a couple.
Councillors Ian Fry and Jim Tugwood, who are both self-isolating.
Yeah. This is the big news, yes.
Should we all be sitting 3 feet apart?
Yeah. Doing elbow bump.
Dee has been advised by the hospital she's treated by to
Right.
stay away from everybody.
It's crazy, isn't it? My daughter's flying from Venice tomorrow, and she flies into Stansted amongst all the other thousands of people, then gets the public transport down, and when she gets to work, she's been told to self-isolate, so she's coming to live in my house for a fortnight.
Find a plane to react to.
Yeah. Okay. Any declarations of interest on items on tonight's agenda? No, thank you, councillors. Okay, minutes of the previous meetings of the Town Council on the 10th of February and of the Planning Committee for information only. Could I have a proposal to accept the minutes of?
Could I just make one comment? Yeah, on the second page at the bottom where we talked about the budget, I abstained as well because I had an interest, not that I was against the budget in itself, but I had one. So I abstained.
Thank you. Correct the record.
Who else abstained?
Councillor Bond.
Yes,
Yeah,
I recorded mine at H, but there were two. It's just easy to correct it to abstention.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we'll correct the record, councillor. Thank you very much indeed. So, a mover, please. Councillor Bond, seconder. Second. Councillor Corbett, all those in favour. Thank you very much. And the Planning Committee has for information on the finance report of that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now the relevant date this time, of course, is the 29th of February, when the balance on the Town Council's funds stood at £156,226 with the reconciliation completed. Payments during February total, as you can see, 32,883, with 8,171 attributable to Salford Gardens, as that included the one of the half-year loan repayments of 4,752. Receipts during February, £10,474, of which 6,572 was the Salisbury Gardens rent collected for the month. And finally, the year-to-date spend, £2,082 over budget, with receipts £2,077 better than budget. And that's the report for now. The usual detail is attached.
Thank you, Clark. So the balance is out. Members, councillors, any questions? Or other?
Post office shop, £26 for coin bags. Is that an annual fee or?
No, we buy them when
we buy coin bags at
the car park.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah. How many coin bags is £26?
More than
5,000.
Excellent.
Don't the banks get them for free anymore?
no.
To a certain level.
Or to a certain, not to your level, Mark. You're not too flush with your bags then. Because you used to get the big cash bags from other sales, they're all stocked as well.
Mind you, probably get a lot of hand sanitizer in 5,000.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks for that. Councillors, anything else? Okay, the proposer to accept the finance report. Thank you. Councillor McCauley and second, Councillor Milford. All those in favour? Thank you. Right. Item number 5, Planning committee protocol. I'm not on the planning committee, so
Yes, Mr. Mayor, shall I just briefly introduce that? It stems from a suggestion from Councillor Ian Bond some time ago that it would be sensible to have a protocol with much more information than the terms of reference provide. So Councillor Bond kindly provided an initial draft. It's been discussed with me and the committee a couple of times, and the addition that you've got in front of you was approved by last week's planning, 2 weeks ago, 18th of February planning committee. So it's here for hopefully formal acceptance.
thank you very much. Councillors, Councillor Bond, do you want to speak to this?
Very briefly, Chair, just to say that the idea was to bring together the process for planning with some of the issues around how councils will tackle planning applications and the conduct issues all into one document. Really aimed at the public, although whether they'll be able to find it on our website is another matter.
Well, that's true enough.
But
I'm sure they will in the thousands.
and I think both myself and the town clerk have rewritten bits and pieces, but the contents are all stuff that other parish councils have published, so we haven't done anything new. It's all it reflects the best practice.
Thank you for the work that you've done on that. It seems to me, a layman, not contentious, but as I say, I am a layman. So the proposal is that we adopt this protocol as written. Would I have Councillor Lucas? Councillor Bond, all those in favour?
I think Councillor Bond has an interest, Chair.
Oh, yeah, having been co-author.
On that basis, I suspect there'll be another more interesting clear.
It's not prejudicial, that's for sure.
Thank you very much. Right. Number 6 on the agenda, the new public toilet, which we've been talking about for quite a long time now, it seems. So I'm not going to go through the report. I'll just leave this open to the. I think the most contentious thing would be the Adelaide Council's interest in charging. Jason, do you want to open?
It's probably not for me to open, is it?
No, but it's fine.
There are 3 things here that need some response from the council, listed in paragraphs 2, 3 and 4. First of all is the start date, because the assumptions so far have been that we would look to complete the project before the season, and that's looking, at least to me, and I think to 1 or 2 other people, including Jim Toogood, to be difficult to achieve and will result in some rushing of process, which doesn't seem a risk worth taking when a September start date would clear the bulk of the season. So that's the point of that paragraph 2, is to ask you to agree. And the stage we're at is that the building reg submission is going to take place later this week. That will take 2 or 3 weeks, we expect. And then we have to go through a tender process, and we have to give contractors time, and successful contractor time to get everything together, and the 1st of May start date just looks difficult.
Okay, thank you very much. Has there been any feedback from the planning?
They are generally informally telling Andrew Hitt that they don't see any major problems with it.
Good. Good. Thank you. Councillor Lucas.
Yes, I'm particularly keen to pursue item F, which is challenge the Isle of Wight Council's unwillingness to contribute, because I think if we just let it run there, it's going to be too expensive for us. And I wanted to have some confirmation that this is totally independent of the work that we're doing in the High Street. So I wouldn't want this to be agreed as a pre-runner of the High Street problem.
We see
Because that stands
contingent
independent.
on the High Street renovation going ahead.
Yeah, the High Street non-parking situation, which we're considering,
Yeah.
links with this to some degree, because that's why we're talking about it. But I don't want this, if we agree this, to be read as if we were agreeing the High Street parking problem. I think the two are independent.
Certainly for myself, I think that is the basis on which we move forward.
I just want to clarify that.
Yeah.
I think it's particularly important to challenge the Isle of Wight's unwillingness to contribute, because it's just totally unreasonable, absolutely totally unreasonable, bearing in mind the regeneration problems that they are trying to solve.
Thank you.
Just one I've got is this, I still think £5,800 for annually for 4 car parking spaces is way over the top. Is this not negotiable? What options do we have on that?
It would better be negotiable.
That's what we're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean that is, and there's nothing in there that says it can't be 10,000 next year. That's the point that we really want to make.
They seem to be the Isle of Wight Council right from the get-go, financially taking our stance, because I think in these streets and towns they make an awful lot of money out of car parking, so there is But we don't intend to let this go.
No, I mean it all looks reasonably straightforward apart from that.
Councillor McCoy.
Are we talking about the toilet or the car park?
No, we're talking about the new public toilet. No, the car park is separate.
All right,
so we've jumped ahead a little bit.
So again, you said there's 3 things. The first thing being the start date.
I'd rather, Chair, if we may, follow the structure of the report.
Right, okay, sure.
People won't get confused,
okay.
nor will I in the minute.
So
the first element is the question of the start date.
Yeah.
So
the proposal is that we put the start date for the project back to September rather than starting May. Councillor Milton.
I was going to propose that we do put it back, well, for 2 reasons. Not one of the logistics of getting the building done, as you've outlined here, but also the lack of agreement on the rental. I don't think you can start building something until we agree on the renting.
So, as to, I think we're more or less agreed September. So the date in September, do we have anything particular?
What did we agree on the closure of the Marlborough Road?
As appropriate, or something like that.
So that'll wait until it's ready to open, I would expect.
We have a 6 months notice period, Councillor.
And we made the point to the Isle of Wight Council that they're getting an asset back that they can get some money out of or sell, and that ought to be taken into consideration in the overall.
Yeah, I mean, all the arguments are on our side, so it's just a matter of convincing them otherwise. So do we have a date that we'd like to suggest? We don't want to generalise, do we?
I'm happy with the start date in May, Chair. I'm not bothered about exactly when.
In September,
The major question is whether it's before or after the season that will make a start.
No, I think, but September still is, well,
I thought saying
that's a pretty old fashioned, isn't it? The season. Would they be ready? The season no longer exists on the Isle of Wight, as we used to know it. Oh, sorry, Jimmy.
Would they be ready by Christmas?
yes, we can decorate it.
Well, Santa Claus can open it. Okay, so we'll. So the suggestion is, and I would move that we have a start window of September. So we move on again to paragraph 3 then, the charging.
One of the aspects is not just the 4 spaces and the extra spaces which the builder will need to do the job, but the movement of contractors' vehicles. which is very, very dangerous in the summer months when everybody's backing in now. So you really got to push it to a quieter time.
Yeah, that's a good point. This is really with regard to charging 20 pence per visit. Many toilets on the mainland new builds certainly have card readers on them, which seems an awful lot for 20p for a P, as it were. My inclination is always that we shouldn't charge people to go to the toilet, but it has to be paid for in some way or another. So do any councillors have any views on this?
The thing is, if we put the equipment in, we can tell our option as to whether we charge it or not, but you can't do it afterwards because the equipment is specialist. So, for instance, in a high season, we could, or high days and holidays, we could cancel it, etc. But you can't go backwards.
So maybe council
So we need
not
the
to do it.
equipment, even if we are choosing to do it free.
And then you could probably have it free during things like carnival and things like that.
Yeah, that's right.
Always good option to turn it off.
By switching it off, Okay.
We have discussed this backwards and forwards a number of times at the Assets and Services Group, and there is no simple answer. I think all of us would love to have free loos, but there are clear advantages to spending a penny being 20p, both in terms of the revenue that it generates and also the possibility that they have a reduction of vandalism and so on. But I think it's a really good compromise. The idea that you could switch between the season and off season to turn the payments on and off, I'd fully support that option.
Thank you, Councillor Philip. Thank you very much indeed. So what we're doing is we're offsetting roughly half the repayments in any case, which is a good start. So does anybody dissent from that? Then we take the vote at the end. So that we know where we're going. Thank you very much. Now, this is the most contentious part of the Isle of Wight Council charge at paragraph 4. We have discussed this in the SWG ad nauseum, and none of us like it at all, which is the reason that we're going to take them on over this. Councillors, any comments?
So my view is that we replace the spaces like for like, and then we never have to pay anything.
Yeah, the comment is that it feeds perfectly into the next item, doesn't it? And if we can find a solution to increase the number of parking spaces in the rest of the car park, then I see absolutely no reason at all why there should be any contest about this rather large sum of money.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Okay, in that case, we'll go to the vote, councillors. Could I have a proposal, please? We'll take the two of them together because I don't think there's going to be any dissent here. Paragraph 5, recommendation. Members are recommended to agree to start dates for the Watsons between as September, strike May as September, and to include the cash and card facilities in the build. Councillor Logan proposes. Councillor Watkins, all those in favour? Thank you very much.
So can you propose one secondly again?
Yeah, the proposal was Councillor Logan.
Thank you.
And the second was Councillor Watkins. Thank you. Unanimous. Okay, car parks. Right, David, do you want to?
Well, yes, I can.
You're so eloquent.
I don't know what I think we'll take you through the background, as you know all of that, and you're familiar with the discussions about costs. So the basic position, as we understand it, is that I think Councillor Watley might be able to confirm the substance of the conversation he had with the Director of Regeneration.
Yeah. So the Chris Ashman is purely driven by revenue. He hasn't got any room to manoeuvre. Anything that results in what he considers to be a loss of revenue from that car park, based on the very simplistic division of the total rent by the total number of spaces. If we lose spaces, we lose rent in their calculation. If we lose any spaces, he can't deal with that. There's no room for manoeuvre in the rest of the council's budget. Again, not wishing to conflate two issues, the saving on the harbour pumping costs is already factored into that. If we don't find that saving, it's got to come out of social services or something somewhere. They are that tight now. So the only way out of paying the Isle of Wight Council £1,600 a year per space that they've notionally lost is to create some more spaces, which I believe we have the room for. So it's a question now of professionally working out the number of car parking spaces you can have, how that you can access, you get in and out of without bumping things, widths and turning circles and all that kind of stuff. There's software on the internet which you can find very easily that will allow you to do that. And then, yeah, we need to work out who's paying for the diggers and the concrete to turn it's a scrubby green space into car parking spaces. Now, I think that then comes to our point about a bit of help from the Isle of Wight Council to Ventnor. But perhaps we shouldn't agree to take on all of those costs. Maybe we should split the difference, perhaps.
Yeah.
But we don't know what those costs are.
No, we don't. Yeah.
We're handing an improved asset to them, basically, aren't we?
Yeah.
And increasing the revenue.
No, the revenue will stay the same.
The revenue stays the same.
Probably. Needs modelling out.
It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 additional days.
Yeah, minus 12 for the free car parking when we move out of the high street.
That's an assumption that's not being
No,
realised.
that's what I was saying.
Yeah, but you've got to keep the
Two
assumption.
linked, you know.
Yeah, but we've got to assume the assumption if you've given my illustrations. Just for the purposes
I've lost where we are now.
No, we have to assume the assumption because we can't obviously have a preconception of how the regeneration will go and whether the car parking will go or not. But we have to in our plans assume that it's a possibility.
You can imagine a situation where a whole bunch of parking meters appeared in our high street one day.
Mm-hmm.
The next day we wished to move the car parking.
They haven't ever council committed to the free parking in the high street.
Yeah.
In their budget.
Yeah, but
It's in there black and white.
I'm just saying you could imagine if they did charge for on-street parking, and then that would scupper our plans completely, because then they'd say if you take that away, we want the revenue anyway. It is all very interrelated, the car parking. But if we just assume nothing changes except some digging in the car park.
Let's assume the other way. Let's leave, as Brian says, the high street.
Absolutely, yeah.
Am I right? Then there will be 9 additional days.
Less the
We've got
toilet.
control of the car parks. Under the tariff that we choose, so those extra spaces would give us extra revenue, wouldn't they?
Yep.
Irrespective of the high street. But
Yeah,
I mean,
If we own the car park and then put extra spaces in, that's our revenue.
yes, I mean, we need to get a quotation to find out how much that surfacing will cost. But if it's put on the loan, it would be
Good investment.
good investment.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
On the assumption
So
that
we
we will
pay
get
for-
control of the car parks, irrespective of what we do with the high street.
yes.
Yeah. Which is, you know, a separate thing.
Yep.
Linked but separate at this stage.
There's a net gain because if we look at the graphic and compare it to the photograph and discount the spaces, although it's as Nicky has, Nicky has been up there and measured it, and he's obviously not a surveyor, so it's purely as a layman.
Now, there are fixed rules between parking spaces and gaps between bays, you know, so it's not rocket science.
No.
Yeah.
People like me, Brian. Might be rockets.
It's the manoeuvring space to get into some of those. It's challenging.
24.10.
Because if you look at the photograph above, you can see that we've squeezed a lot more rows into the same length.
Yeah, and it's not straight as it is.
And then we're trying to get into the last place down the end of the road.
It's not spacious, but it's underused. I still would like to emphasise the fact that it's very rarely filled to its capacity at the car parking centre. Okay.
As I see it, I mean, there's a whole load of advantages to proceeding with this. The only comment I'd like to make is to say that here, the bottom plan, as Nikki has done, it does involve removing all of that planted bed along by the side of the road there, and it does add some value actually to the so-called street scene, having the planted bed there. But I'm definitely interested to see the professional survey of what precisely what we can and can't do there, and find a good balanced way forward.
I agree with what you say, Councillor. It does add to the street scene, but it also is quite badly used as a public disposal area sometimes, especially for empty cans and other unmentionable things.
Yeah,
I
it's
agree.
modelling out.
It can be quite unsightly when you're walking past there. But that's just an observation of mine.
To pick up on your point there about taking out the planted areas, that the net biodiversity gain regs still aren't with us yet. But you're right, if we are going to be removing some green stuff from here, we should be putting it in somewhere else.
Yeah.
And there may be ways to do that in the plan.
Sure.
Yeah. I'm certainly not in favour of taking out big chunks of green stuff if we can avoid it.
There is sorry, David. Paragraph F of section 1, I can't see it.
Over the page.
Oh, sorry. Section 3 then. Right. So what we're deciding here really is whether we accept the options to, what's the form of word for David?
Well, I think all you need to decide at this time, as far as I'm concerned, is that we should go ahead and get some costs for a professional assessment
Of the actual cost. Yeah. And I don't suppose we have any sort of ballpark figures for that now, so we're completely working in the dark until we get an actual cost.
The only thing is we shouldn't use island roads because they could be very expensive.
Yeah.
If we can get one of the other contractors on the island to do it, we would much better.
So do we invite, or do we tender?
There's a firm called Crown or something.
Crown Plaza, yeah.
That does a lot of their work.
No, Crown Plaza, that's a hotel.
Crown Park.
Crown Park, thank you, Stephen.
MCM as well.
Yes, that's right.
There's a few.
They obviously have to be approved by island roads.
I don't think we're at a tender process stage yet, but we can get a guide price from
Yeah, okay.
And because, as Councillor Lucas says, we will need the Isle of Wight Council's permission and Island Road's consent because they have a contractual obligation
That's right.
to maintain the car park.
Okay. Right, so
Could I just ask, have we got any indication from the council whether they think this is a goer, or if they just turn around and say, "I don't care how many extra spaces you could create, we still want to charge you"?
Chris Ashman has seen that. Chris Ashman has seen that.
So, what did he say?
He said as long as there is no net loss of revenue, do what you need to do.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Well, this would increase the revenue, I tell you.
why
We- not if we own the car park.
Yeah.
Not if we own the car park.
Oh yeah, but if you don't want to do this first, you take the car park over to it second.
It's all conflated.
And of course, we're waiting for the much vaunted car parking report.
Yeah.
It's coming, which we've been waiting for with bated breath for such a long time. So my sense around the table is that there is no objection to the clerk putting a motion to have costings established for this project before any decision is made whether to go ahead or not. Okay, thank you very much. Working groups. The purpose of this report is to update members on the background to the Town Council's working groups and their understanding of their remit and the areas of work. Our advisory groups. There are two main working groups here: the Assets and Services and the Community Development working groups, which are advisory and which do not take any formal decisions on their own. So I don't know if members have read this report or not. So I'll open it. Members.
Chair, the issue I have with the remit section of the document is it isn't actually a remit unless it specifies what the body does, and by application everything else it doesn't do. I think the problem you have with it, the way it's worded, is you've got those words in that first sentence, but it's not limited to. It essentially renders that paragraph pointless.
Sorry, Councillor Blunt, just run that by me again.
Well, if section 4 remit.
Oh, I'm looking at. Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong paragraph.
Yeah, section 4
I
remit.
understand that.
It's the remit is essentially the physical assets of the town council and the legal and insurance responsibilities of the services. That's what the body should be discussing. And my view of a working group is that it should be discussing things the council has already agreed. I mean, the idea of a working group is its members go away and look in detail informally at issues the council has already agreed to do. That but is not limited to in section 4, essentially tries to coach and also through the whole document.
What was the discussion about the cascades? Are a useful thing?
No, I mean, the reason I raised this is actually the Ventnor Flags project, which I'm still very unhappy about. If you put yourself in my position, when I first found out about that Ventnor Flags project, because somebody came up to me in the park when I was walking the dog and said, "What's all this about the Flags project?" Now, at that point, I didn't know anything about it, which is quite embarrassing for me to have a member of the public. And that member of the public told me that she'd been told by a member of the Assets and Services Working Group that it had been agreed the previous day. And I went home and looked at my papers. I had no papers about it whatsoever. So there was I as a councillor being told by a member of the public about a project that I knew nothing about. When we got to the meeting on Monday, as you remember, the papers weren't tabled with any sort of notice, so we agreed to defer it. And on Monday, it got nodded through in the budget. I abstained. But most of you have been at the Assets and Services Working Group and had a discussion about it. I, as a member of the council, hadn't had any discussion at all. All I had on paper was Ventnor Flags, 2 words. And I think it was wrong for the council to have nodded it through and put it in the budget. The correspondence we had between us, if you check, there's an email from the town clerk and another email from Councillor Crockett committing that we'd have a discussion about it today. And until I saw the agenda, I was expecting that to happen because both of you said it would happen. When I look at the Assets and Services Working Group minutes, I see that you've had a further discussion about it. Those of you that are on that group have decided to proceed at a different pace, or the way the minute reads, it implies that we're going to do it slower or not do it at all. So here we are with a project that was put to the council at the end of January. The first chance I'm going to have any discussion about it, and indeed the members of the public to have any involvement in this, whether they're in favour or against, is likely to be April at the earliest. And I don't regard that as acceptable to a member of this council. I know the way parish councils are supposed to work. We're supposed to be a team. We're supposed to be equal. Unlike larger councils, we can't do what larger councils do and give individual members particular responsibilities. We have to take all decisions together. In this particular project, as I say, as a member of the public walking around knowing more about it than I did, I don't think it's an acceptable way to work. And that's why I asked for the remit. And in my view, the remit of this group should be assets and services, and it should be looking at either things that we've already agreed to do as a council, or jobs the council's given the Assets and Services Working Group. So if we want the Assets and Services Working Group to come up with ideas for promoting the town, then that's fair enough. But to have a completely new project led by that group, and the agenda management of that project led by that group, and decisions about when it will be discussed at this council taken by that group, and decisions communicated to the public by members of that group, none of those things, none of that involving the other members of the council, I don't regard I don't even regard that as legal, to be honest. I know the town clerk is doing his best to use his delegated powers to try and make it legal. But in terms of the way it's been done, Because essentially the asset services working group agreed to put that in the budget, and that's the bottom line. And it got nodded through at the council formally.
Well, let me just stop you there, Councillor Bond. The Assets and Services Working Group doesn't have the power to put anything in the budget. Only the meeting of the full council, which is exactly what happened. The Assets and Services Working Group has no powers to decree anything to the council, and I've been on it virtually since its inception, quite a long time. During that time, I have to say that nothing before has caused any consternation amongst the council as a whole. That's not to say that you don't have a valid point. But I would balk at the fact that the SWG makes decisions. It doesn't make decisions, and I can say that quite categorically.
Chair, the group met. The minute says that I think the minute refers to the budget and says that we're going to proceed with it. And the formal positions, the town clerk immediately after that meeting put it into the budget. In practice, a subset of this council met and agreed something.
Got
put into the budget.
No, I'm sorry. I don't have to defend anybody here, but what I'm saying is, you're saying that the ASWG de facto made the decision, and the council rubber stamped the ASWG's decision. The first thing to say is that the ASWG didn't make a decision; it made a recommendation. You may dispute the wording, but to me it's perfectly clear. And the second thing, that because I was here and took the vote was carried out in a proper manner, and the majority prevailed. The minority didn't prevail. So from that point of view, it was a decision of the council.
Yeah, no, Chair, I didn't want to create a big argument, but
yeah, I think
we understand that we've got this project.
Yes, I do understand
to be about, but 2 months later.
Yeah, but I just want to put on the record that the demarcation line here, which to my mind as chair of the council, is sacrosanct, and that is the fact of the matter.
It shouldn't be the group's job to launch projects that no one's asked for. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Well, yeah.
I mean, they're a bit of a think tank, really, the Assets and Services Group, and I'd hate for them to have to go back to the main council for every embryonic idea that we think we might want to pursue, because you wouldn't want to do that. I mean, it's nothing to do with going into the budget or making a firm agreement. It's really a question of what projects we investigate to see whether they might be a good idea.
I think I might have a solution that solves everybody's issues. Okay, so the way big government does this is they have green papers and white papers. Okay? Now, when I first arrived at the council, I didn't really understand how you got things put on the table to discuss in the first place. There seemed to be a mechanism where you went around and spoke to people, and it became there's sufficient momentum that everybody wanted. What about something like green papers and white papers? Here's a thing that I thought of that may be madness. Why don't we have a bit of a chat about it? And if it's not madness, and there might be something to think about, here's a white paper. Now should we then start this? And these are kind of white papers, aren't they? These are things that we thought about that we wish to pursue. Now, does that make sense? So that if somebody wants to do a project, everybody in the council gets to see it before it gets too much work done on it.
But if you take the 31 bus example, Stephen was good enough to bring a paper to this council, and we talked about his ideas for changing the service twice, in fact, once to do the on request service and then once to reduce the number of days. And that didn't cause any difficulty. If you take the planning protocol that we've agreed earlier, I brought it to this council, shared it with all of you, thought it was a good idea, we went ahead and did it. And to my mind, that's the best way of doing things, and that's the way that parish councils are supposed to work. They're not supposed to have a cabinet that does stuff, with a subset of members. They are supposed to be all of us discussing around the table, and then a working group goes away and does the details. And that's what I would expect to see in the remit. And the problem I have is that this remit doesn't actually change anything.
Yeah, I just want to say something. Just your choice of phraseology was a wee bit off there. I mean, again, you seem to be referring to the SWG has powers which it doesn't have. Councillor Bond, and the thing that I would say here is that you look at things like the allotments and St Boniface Fields and things like that. That's exactly how that evolved, was through the SWG. Otherwise, it would never have happened. And they're hugely successful stories.
Yeah, we'll go back to the actual point of the money going into the budget, where I was struggling a little bit as well on one side. Because as far as the process as I understood it, is we had the informal meeting just before where we agreed what was going into the budget, and we all duly sat around for a good long while and agreed it. Now that went away, and that's where we thought. Then it came back, and I did catch us a little bit cold in that there was an extra thing in there. Yeah. Like that wasn't involved in the assets and services group, so that there is a subset that I don't know what the process was of that going actually being in the budget. But it certainly wasn't agreed by everybody, it was on the council.
Andrea,
What does the record say?
I can't remember what it says. My experience in 10 years of developing budgets with council has been that the purpose of the informal council is precisely that. It's to start a discussion. It's not anything in that isn't final or intended to be, which is why we then have a later meeting to look at what will go in and what won't. The particular project, which is of course concerned, and accept that wasn't handled as well as it should have been, but there was no decision made about including it in the budget. It was put there as one of the suggestions which had come up, which was the process as I understood it, informal budget, people then, councillors in particular, and in this case the Assessment Services Group, make suggestions which come to the formal council to be approved, activated or not. At no stage was there a commitment to that project, and at any stage, including the final stage of approving the budget. We were clear at the time, I thought, and apologies if I wasn't, clear at the time that that was money that was there, a bit like Family Voice, which has been there twice and has never been used, although it's going to be this year, I'm happy to tell you. So if the project did go ahead, there was funding for it. It seemed to me a fairly small amount of money, and no harm was done, given that the council could well have said on the meeting when the budget was approved, take it out. It's quite simple. That's all you have to do.
In terms of the remit, can I make a helpful suggestion? We don't need to agree this in a hurry. We've got plenty of time. So can we refer it back to the Assets and Services Working Group to have a look at again? And
Yes.
maybe
just one thing, if I may, Councillor. The phrase "not limited to" isn't my making. It appears in several of the ones that I've looked at, and that's because I think it was Councillor Lucas who described the ASG as a valuable think tank. Yeah. And that's my experience of it too. There are all kinds of things that are now in place, approved by this council, that wouldn't, as far as I know, have happened had it not been for the work that group's done.
But there's ends and means there, isn't there? The fact the ends of it doesn't justify the means that we used to do it. And I don't think it's right that somebody should come up to me in the park and tell me what my council's agreed, and I don't know the first thing about that project. I just think that's wrong.
Well, the person that told you in the part A was quoted you something which wasn't true, and B, if they were told by members of the group, they shouldn't have been. Obviously, that's confidential between them and whoever did it. But the fact of the matter, just because the members of the public tell me things all the time, which they've heard in the council, which say that the pedestrianisation was a done deal. That I could go on.
But those are rumours, whereas this was actually
these are well, you ask Ed Blake that then.
This is a project that had actually been discussed previously.
Yes, these are also projects that have been discussed, but no decision had ever been made, and we emphasised that right from the very get-go.
Yeah, I just sort of say that I think the way forward is not to try and stifle discussion and new ideas coming forward. Perhaps just take a little more care to make sure as soon as something's put on the table is what we're thinking about doing, that the full council gets to know about it.
I think Councillor Bond's suggestion is very sensible, that we remit the remit back to the SRWG with a view to wording it and then bringing it back.
I thought Bembridge counts actually, whatever else you think about.
You don't mention Bembridge.
I have to say, I thought in terms of reference for all their working groups, and I thought they were pretty good.
Yeah,
So,
look at what happened to Bembridge Council.
Well, yeah, but it's not cause and effect.
Okay.
Yes, and
Councillor.
both the working groups have sets of minutes which are circulated to every councillor. And how would it be if at every town council meeting of this we refer to them and see whether there's general agreement to what they're doing?
Yeah. Okay.
Because if they don't, if somebody says, I think this is ridiculous, at least we know that there is an aspect we've got to consider.
I don't have
Because
any
everybody
doubts
gets these minutes, and they get them fairly quickly, and they get them before the next town council meeting, certainly before anything will be agreed at this meeting. So, I mean, there's no mystery.
No. So we'll ensure that the SWG report is included in the agenda of all future town council meetings, and we will remit the decision on the remit until after the next SWG.
Yeah, good.
Nobody dissenting, I take it.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Southwestern Energy Hub Groups, Tom, would you like to?
Yeah, so Bays and DEFRA have a shared responsibility for renewable energy. They have found that every time anyone tries to do any sort of renewable energy projects, there is a bit of NIMBYism in this country. So one of their schemes is to devolve decision making to the lowest democratically available level, which is town and parish councils. They have a scheme called the Renewable Community Energy Fund, which the application form or the opportunity to apply for flashed into the town clerk's inbox some month or so ago. We put in the first stage application to that, and we're told, yeah, what you're proposing is not insane, and this is to use the seaweed from our haven, and when it washes up on the beach, to put it into anaerobic digestion to generate gas that we can use for heating our houses and potentially running our buses. The second stage of the application form is upon us. We need to fill that in. I've spoken to a bunch of biogas bus manufacturing people and the anaerobic digestion operators on the Isle of Wight, and they're all quite keen. If we fill in the form, do the de minimis declaration to show that we're not getting too much from state aid, and get some quotes from some suitably qualified consultants, we can get 40 grand out of DEFRA to help us to look at seaweed and harbours and beaches and things like that.
Thank you, Councillor Watling. Councillors? Sounds great.
Yeah.
I detect a flush of enthusiasm. Watching over me.
No, it's got a big advantage in that the tourists, when they come here, they don't like wading through seaweed. And so it's going to make the beaches looking tidier, even if it has a secondary benefit, but making gas.
We like we're at the kind of checking out stages of it.
It costs us nothing to do it, and
Costs us nothing
it
to
might
do
help
it.
us solve our problem.
Do you know if are any other parishes around the island having trouble with the accumulation of seaweed? I mean, nobody else has particular haven.
Particularly, but
Cats do it, yeah, the bay, some Shetland have problems periodically. Yeah.
Bembridge too.
I'm unaware of them, because the way that the grant scheme is done, bringing together a coalition of people wouldn't help. So if we do it and then it works, there's no reason why it can't be expanded across the island.
They break it up, don't they, at Sandown and Shanklin, with a tractor.
Big machine. Yeah.
Well, they're better able to do that, Brian, by the nature of the beaches. They're huge, like right, they're huge beaches, and they use big tractors to
And
do
you
it.
used to be able to put it on your fields, but you're not allowed to anymore because you don't know what's in it. And it ends up
Because
in
it
the
do grow good strawberries.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else, Councillor? Thanks, Councillor, for this. I think it's great work, and it's great. It's Councillor Market will attest. It's a great green initiative as well for Ventnor Town Council. So thank you very much. So, do you want to move that we take it forward?
Yep.
Second, please. Councillor Lucas, all those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you very much. Did you get mover in the Public spaces protection orders. I think this is for information, isn't it, Mark? Really?
Well, the consultation is open. You're in a position to comment if you choose to. There are very limited impacts on Ventnor, but in specifics, as you see from the report, dogs making a mess anywhere on pavements throughout the island are committing an offence. But the main concern has always been about dogs on beaches, and though, as far as I can make out, Councillor Bond can advise on this, but as far as I can make out, they're not proposing any changes to the current arrangements.
No, I mean, it's declaring a general interest as a dog owner, which I don't think that's a personal pecuniary interest.
I know, isn't it?
I mean, this hasn't been Isle of Wight Council's finest out. The draft proposals that came out last year were met with howls of protest around the island. Big petitions, lots of campaign groups, Facebook groups and everything, people getting very exercised about it, and they were quite drastic, the first proposals. They included a complete ban on dogs outside here on Salisbury Gardens, and for people who live in the flats in the town centre, it's their own, it's the nearest and really only exercise area when the beach is closed. And thankfully, the Isle of Wight Council also thought twice about taking on the dog owners in the island. The last figures I saw was about 30% of the houses on the island have got a dog. And they've retreated, and as the town clerk said, the changes being proposed here are reasonably modest. I think in Ventnor, it's the cemetery would have an off-lead ban, so you have to have a lead in the cemetery, which again, to be honest, I'd regard as a little bit pointless because the cemetery is deserted most of the time, and the dog owners make it safe for anyone else who happens to be walking through. And then the other change is the fitness area in the upper park will become a dog. Well, it's already got the notice and a fence around it saying no dogs, but it will be formalised, so that you could be fined if you have a dog in there, and that doesn't bother me particularly. And there are a couple of local footpaths, I think, up towards Whitwell and Rood that will be on lead. I mean, the only point that does occur to me, I was quite interested to see what Cornwall have done this year, because Cornwall conducted Cornwall obviously like us, rural tourism, and they conducted a very big consultation. I think they got the biggest ever response of any consultation they've ever done about their beach bans. And for this year, they're actually, apart from their green flag beaches, they're moving their beach bans to just July and August, and just the school holidays. And they're also making them 10 AM to 6 PM, so that dog owners will get to go on the beach in the evening when all the bucket and spade people have left. Yeah. And to my mind, that makes Cornwall quite attractive as a dog-friendly destination. Yeah, I'd be interested to know what other people think, but it's a shame that the Isle of Wight Council doesn't really have the imagination to sort of join up this strategy. I mean, they're approaching this as a piece of regulation, it seems to me. They're not approaching this as an opportunity to tie in with the tourism strategy and the regeneration strategy.
Which is what they should be doing. Steve, did you want to say something? Oh, sorry, I thought you were doing it. No, I'm with you. It may surprise you to know, Ian, I support you wholeheartedly in that. I remember years ago I had a dog, I'm like you, and only since my wife died we don't have the dog, Milo. But it used to go down, and not long after I moved to Vent, I didn't realise that there was a dog ban on the beach down there. The beach was empty, and there's a guy across me says, "Is that your dog down there?" Milo was digging for stones on the beach. And I said, "Aye, it's my dog." I said, "Well, it's not supposed to be there. It says there on that sign that the dog shouldn't be there between X and Y." I said, "Well, I'll come to an agreement with you." He says, "What?" I said, "You teach my dog to read the sign, and I'll make sure you don't That'll be the end of the conversation." So.
My personal view is the island's got a lot to offer as a dog-friendly tour. Dog-friendly tourism actually is one of the fastest growing markets. So who knows what will happen with tourism this year?
If dogs are properly trained, there's absolutely no problem with them whatsoever. There is not. It's not the dog's fault. It's the owner's fault, and if the owner does it, then they deserve everything that's coming to them. But I'm very pro dog.
That's just it. Nothing does come to them. The enforcement is actually
Well, again, it's
meaningless.
Again, Brian, it's like parking. Our building and planning enforcement. The regulations are there, but the people to enforce the regulations are not there, and that's. Gary's not here again, so he can't get the message back. But No, thanks. Anybody else got anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't own a dog, but I've always been more annoyed on behalf of dog owners about the 4-month ban or so on the beaches than the sight of a dog walking along the beach. So perhaps if there is a feeling around the table, we could respond with a suggestion to
Look at the corner.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we just, rather than making a firm proposal ourselves, we could suggest that the Isle of Wight looks at what Cornwall has done and with a view to seeing whether the island can be made more dog friendly as a destination, and leave it in that rather than proposing months and times or so. I'm quite happy to propose that if everyone's happy with it.
Yeah, I don't know. You just give yourself another job, do you? Okay.
Is that
Yes, very happy with that. Thank you. Thank you for your kind offer. Clark.
Yes, the Ventnor Food Bank, you will have been started here, probably has closed or will close. And at the end of April, for the reasons that are recorded in the report briefly. The people I've spoken to who organise food banks on the island, across the island, are clear that the need for food bank supplies is very clear in Ventnor. But as you can see, there is increasing evidence they have, and it is evidence because they see the vouchers when they come back through the process, that people are preferring to go elsewhere in increasing numbers. The South Locality Primary Care Network element, some of you and Alison and I had a very useful meeting with Dr. and John to introduce what's behind the concept of the network and its implementation over the coming months. The draft housing strategy, just to record that the submission get made within the time. But I've spent 2 weeks trying to get the people that went to acknowledge receipt, and 6 emails, and still.
That's like any housing strategy they've ever had before, and you never find it.
Cascade water flow, thanks to Jim Tudid and the help of our contractor, the blockage to the Cascade water flow finally found and removed, and the ongoing myth about water coming through pipes from Southern Water has been dispelled, hopefully for good.
if we saved or spent the money, we've got in next year's budget for Cascade water flow.
Morgan is undertaken to do the certificate in local council administration, known as a SILCA. It's a level 3 qualification, and will be supported in this by his line manager and assistant clerk. The South Wight Parish's Health and Wellbeing Group has had another meeting, which Councillor Mac was very good, I believe.
Yes, good link this time.
Dates of the working groups are recorded as usual. So that's it.
Thank you very much. So, just before I ask for Councillor's contribution, I'll just read a meeting of another description the other day, and I asked Marzena about the food bank, and she was as disappointed as we are that the food bank is closing. And there's an irony here, because it seems that people, for example, are coming from other places. Newport was suggested to the Ventnor food bank, and people from Ventnor were going to other food banks now, purely because they're embarrassed about being seen to be using food banks. It's an absolute tragedy, and it breaks your heart to think that these people are so worried about using food banks out of necessity that they feel that they have to get on a bus from Newport to Ventnor, to feed their children. I think it's beyond parody, really is a terrible shame. And before again we open up, taking to Morgan and number 5, I would just like to say well done, Morgan. And you're one of the best thing the two parts in here was engage you to come onto and work for this council. You've done a really great job. You've been invaluable, I know, both to members and to other members of staff. And thank you very much, and congratulations on your initiative. And we wish you well going forward with it. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, Steve.
Yeah, I'd just like to echo your disappointment about the Ventnor food bank. I think there's a lot of stigma about getting hold of the vouchers to get it, and that it's not made easy for people. There are particular reasons why some people think go to Newport, because the number of bus journeys, actually it's easier for them to go to Newport and come back again rather than have an extra journey back into Ventnor to get their vouchers. So I think we want to register our disappointment that is the case. And if you sort of compare that to the development with Baby Box, which I'm involved with, which makes access and distribution very simple. Basically, you come and get what you need. There is clearly a very high demand for support of a very similar nature. So I think for a number of reasons, obviously Ventnor Food Bank have found reasons that they can say we needed to terminate the service. But I think we should keep an eye on these, and perhaps demands will grow again and manifest themselves, and we might find ourselves needing to open them in the future.
The co-op takes donations of food in, so anybody doesn't was doing that, they have a trolley by the window in the co-op for donations to the food bank, so that is still local.
Yeah, but it's very well attended, that trolley.
Yeah, and just to add to that, so of course Leslie's Nutshell is now offering pre-foods as well, and the idea about food bank and how that could come into the social prescribing was spoken to with and since gone on with Dr. John for the Primary Care Network. So hopefully we can involve it in what's going to happen over the next 8 to 10 months.
Thank you.
Which should make it easier and less stigmatic. Yeah.
Sure. Okay, any more contributions? Thank you, Pat. Just before you switch off, Morgan, just the next item on the agenda has to be closed because of its nature to public and press. So I'm sorry to people who are watching the live stream, and Morgan, who we just talked about there, what a future star in the making, is going to switch you off, I'm afraid, but bear no personal grudge towards him. Proud of you. Thank you very much indeed. Thanks, Morgan.